Hello everyone, Jolene here from Bookworm Adventure Girl. I hope that you are all well and that you've had a good week. Just before I get started with today's video, I wanted to mention that I will be a judge for the BookTube prize for next year, along with several, a lot of other fellow booktubers and subscribers. And I am so excited to be part of this, and they are still looking for more judges. So if that is something that you are interested in, then I will leave a link to the call for judges video in the description box below. Be sure to check that out. I would love to see all the categories for the prize go ahead, but in order for that to happen, they need something like over a couple hundred judges. So hopefully enough people will sign up. And maybe that could be you. Okay, so today I thought that I would share some of the books I've been reading this month, and in particular talk about the spooky books, or the ones that are most fitting for this time of year. So I have 6 books to share with you, and I think I have a pretty diverse pile here. I have vampires, ghosts, thrillers, mysteries, horror, and books inspired by true crime. So if you are looking for a book or two to finish off the month with a spookier or scarier or more thrilling read, then maybe one of these will do the trick for you. So let's get started. The first novel is one that was shortlisted for the Giller Prize, and that is The Listeners by Jordan Tannahill. And I guess if I had to categorize this, I would call it a psychological thriller with a closed room mystery vibe to it as well. And this book seems to be getting a lot of mixed reviews, and from what I've read and heard, the story doesn't seem to be for everyone. But what I thought was really good about it was the writing. And in fact, I now want to read the author's other novel. What I liked about it most was how it made me uncomfortable sometimes, and I couldn't put my finger on exactly why. So was it because I was reading into things in the story? I was making some judgments. So I found myself wondering what was really happening. The main character, Claire, is a wife and mother, and one night she hears a humming noise. And nobody seems to hear it, but for Claire it won't go away. And doctors can't explain it, and the noise kind of takes over her life. And eventually Claire finds other people who can also hear the noise, including one of her students. And her relationship with the student becomes one of the things I was uncomfortable with. But again, I'm not sure if I was supposed to. So there were a number of times I thought the story would go one way. I'd think, oh, that's the direction we're going here. Okay, fine. And then it would go in a completely different direction. Claire's family doesn't know whether she has a mental illness. And once she finds others who are experiencing the same noise, hearing the noise, there are questions whether or not she has joined a cult or some type of conspiracy theory group. And near the end, I was kind of wondering these things myself. It really did make me think, and I did like how it ended, or maybe more accurately, I like that my questions were answered. And, even thinking about it now, I did go on a bit of an emotional roller coaster ride with this one, not knowing who or what you can trust. And I kind of liked that. So I still have a couple more books to read for the Giller before making my prediction sometime next week. But this one, does have a chance. Next is another novel that has also kind of a closed room mystery vibe to it. And this time the closed room is at a health spa, 9 Perfect Strangers by Liane Moriarty. This was a very interesting story in which 9 people arrive at a health spa called Tranquillum, and we learn about each character, including Frances, who is a writer. She writes romance novels. There's a family who are grieving, a couple who need marriage counseling, and a few other people. And Marcia is this fairy godmother-like type character who runs the wellness center. And she specifically chooses each person to be there. And her goal is for every person to be changed and healed and to be different when they leave. But Marcia has some very unique and maybe unorthodox ways of helping these people. So there are a few twists and turns along the way. We start to learn about each person's past and the secrets that they have and that they're kind of keeping. So it's one that kind of keeps you on your toes as well. The third book I want to talk about is a book that Jane from Lady Jane Books introduced me to on her channel. See What I Have Done by Sara Schmidt. This is a mystery, thriller, historical fiction, and it's also a debut novel. This book grabbed me from the very beginning. I was familiar with the Lizzie Borden story and how she was tried for the murders of her father and stepmother, and then only to be acquitted, and the murders remain unsolved, and they still, are shrouded in this mystery. So this novel begins smack in the middle of the action in Fall River, Massachusetts, on the day, August 4th, 1892, when Andrew Borden and his second wife, Abby, are found dead in their home, and they have been hacked with an axe. So there is a lot of descriptions around what the murdered bodies look like. So a heads up that it is described in great detail, and it is quite gruesome. The story is told from 4 alternating perspectives. So there's Lizzie herself, Emma, her older sister, the maid Bridget, and then a stranger named Benjamin. And Benjamin's character was the most interesting for me. I think because the author could have taken the easy way out with his character, but didn't, and instead, still left it vague for the reader, which, could be frustrating, but I think it's also a way of letting us experience the frustration of not knowing what happened and living with that uncertainty. So as each person kind of shares, what happened in the days leading up to the murders, the day of the murder, and the following days afterwards, the story kind of gets pieced together like a puzzle to create the story of the Borden home and family life. And I just thought that this book was very well written, and I think it's worth a read if you are interested in this story. I will leave a link in the description box to Lady Jane Books' channel, and also to the video where she talks about this book, and she also shows pictures from when she visited the house. So, and I think the house is now like a museum in Fall River, so you can check that out as well. Next on the pile is This Little Light by Lori Lansens, and this story is about 2 teenage girls, Rory and her best friend Fee, who are on the run from ultra-right-wing Christians who consider the girls to be terrorists, basically. So that description is really surface level because there is a lot packed into this short story. It's not very long. It's only about 280 pages. The story takes place over 48 hours, and it's set in 2023, which I thought was interesting. These 2 teenagers are from super rich families. They live in a gated community where abortions and the pill are a crime, and the girls are expected to attend an AVB, which is American Virtue Ball, where 16-year-old girls pledge to their fathers that they will save their virginity until marriage. So it's while Rory and Fee are at the American Virtue Ball when everything kind of goes sideways, and they are believed to have planted a bomb in their high school's washroom. So the narrator of this story is Rory, and we learn everything through her blog that she is writing while they're in hiding. And we meet a few other characters as well, because there are some people who try to help them. And Lansens manages to have some very heavy topics in this book without it feeling overwhelming. So abortion and religion are like the biggest topics, But she also brings in LGBTQ rights, women's rights, the disparity between people, and immigration. And I thought that Lansens wrote, from a 16-year-old's point of view quite well. There were times where Rory was very annoying because she was superficial. But then when it came down to it, she had valuable insights, and she was questioning everything around her, and that, seems pretty teenagery to me. So the entire story is written almost like a stream of consciousness, and I do wish that the blogs had been written like a blog, because it was sometimes hard to tell like what she was writing and then what was happening in real time. So there's nothing really that differentiates those two things. I think having the blogs, written like a blog would have just helped a little bit in that situation and made it more realistic. Overall, I really liked this story. It definitely made me think, which I do like, and I liked how it ended. Maybe like is not the right word, but I thought that Lansens made an interesting decision with how she chose to end the book. Next is another quick read. It's almost a novella, really. This one is a ghost story, and it's called The Ghost in the House by Sara O'Leary. This isn't a scary story, so if you're looking for like a scary, spooky ghost story, this isn't it. The protagonist in this one is Faye, and when she wakes up in her house, she finds that somehow life has moved on without her. Her husband, who is the love of her life, has another wife, and there's a teenager living with them. Her career as an artist has somehow ended. Things in her beautiful home have been moved or changed in some way, and Faye has to figure out what has happened to her life. So this story doesn't have any big plot twists, but it is reflective of a life and of a marriage and of grief, and it's surprisingly funny at times too. So I think it's worth a read for sure. Of course, I couldn't talk about spooky reads without talking about the king of spooky reads. This month I read Salem's Lot by Stephen King. And this is King's second novel, and I am so glad that I did finally read it. King sets this novel up so well. Ben, a writer, travels back to Salem's Lot, where he grew up and where he had a traumatic experience as a young boy, and the experience still haunts him. And Ben is spending time in Salem's Lot kind of getting to know the neighborhood, and hoping to use the town and the Marston house in particular as his setting. So the Marston house has some scary history, and it's the place that everyone kind of ignores, and at the same time it also seems to loom over the entire community, the entire neighborhood. So then people start going missing, or they're found dead. Ben becomes a prime suspect along with two other newcomers to the town. And King does this so well. He has a large cast of characters. He also makes the town a character, and in this one he makes a landmark, in this case the Marston house, a character, and it's just so well done. Now, if you are a real horror fan and that's your thing, and especially if you are a vampire fan and that's your thing, then you probably won't like what I'm about to say, so I apologize in advance. But for the first two parts of this book, I was enthralled by it. I loved it. The horror or monsters were people, and there are some really difficult scenes to read. But when it truly became a vampire story, it kind of lost me. And now that's my fault and not Stephen King or the writing. It's just not my thing. So first, I didn't know or remember that this was a vampire story. So maybe if I had, I would have set myself up for it and just accepted it. But because I didn't, when the vampire storyline kind of took off, it was just no longer plausible to me, and I lost interest. Now, the fact that I got so far into the story means that it was good. So I imagine that if you are a vampire story fan, then you would love this book. It was definitely worth the read. I think, King is a talented writer, and he makes me really feel about characters one way or the other. So I either really, really like them or I really don't. And he brings the fear and horror to his stories in real life ways. And I also really liked how this story was bookended. So this was definitely, a great spooky read for October. So Stephen King has a new book out now, I think, called Billy Summers. And when King was on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, he was promoting that book, and King shared his top 5 books, or maybe even short stories. So if you are interested in checking that out, I will leave a link to the video below. It's just a quick, 3-minute clip. But if you can, maybe you can check out to see if you have read any of King's favorites that he has for himself. So please let me know in the comments below if you have read any of these books. I'd love to hear your comments. Or if you are reading any spooky books this month, let me know any of the ones that you recommend. I would love to hear about that as well. A reminder, if you want to learn more about being a judge for the BookTube prize next year, then please check out that video below, and I look forward to chatting with you in the comments. Thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and don't forget to make every day an adventure.